the show where we try to recreate historical recipes at home in our kitchens. My name is Megan, and I am a historian with the Heritage Alliance, and today we thought it would be fun to try to recreate a recipe that we all know and love, the hoe cake. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So hoe cakes were and continue to be a distinctly American dish. They originated first with Native Americans, and then they were later enjoyed by European settlers and enslaved Africans alike. Eventually, hoe cakes would come to be a staple food in colonial American life, and it's something that we still eat today. Hoe cakes were a favorite food of President George Washington. He ate them regularly for breakfast, often with hot tea, and he referred to this morning ritual as a temperate repast. Those were his words. He loved especially to smother his hoe cakes in butter and in honey. And so we're going to try to recreate the hoe cakes today as a tribute to President Washington as well. Today's recipe is an adaptation of an original 18th century recipe for hoe cakes provided by President Washington's step-granddaughter, Nellie Custis. There were a lot of regional varieties of hoe cakes. They were enjoyed throughout the country, but they were referred to by different names depending on where you were at. So for instance, in New England, hoe cakes were referred to as Johnny cakes, and there were other terms as well, including journey cakes, ash cakes, bannock, mush cakes, spider bread, and corn pone. So all of these different terms refer to the same thing, which are hoe cakes. To begin, we're going to mix half of a teaspoon of dry active yeast with 1 1/4 cup of our white cornmeal in a large bowl. So now you're going to add 1 cup of lukewarm water to the mixture. And if you need to, you can also add an additional ½ cup of water. You're going to want the consistency of the batter to be similar to pancake batter. In order to get the consistency that we want, we're going to need to add that extra ½ cup of water after all. This recipe is actually a two-parter, so we're going to cover our bowl with plastic wrap and we're going to refrigerate the mixture for at least 8 hours, but preferably overnight. You thought that you were having hoe cakes today, didn't you, Ryan?
I sure did.
Well, you're not. So our mixture is in the refrigerator. We're going to let it rest overnight, and we're going to pick back up where we left off tomorrow morning. And we're back. So we're going to take our batter, which has been resting overnight, out of the refrigerator, and we're going to make our hoe cakes for breakfast. We'll start by preheating the oven to 200 degrees. So to finish our hoe cake batter, we're going to add ½ cup to 1 cup of water to the mixture, and then we're going to add in ½ teaspoon of salt and 1 large egg. To add our remaining 1 1/4 cups of cornmeal, and we're going to interchange that with lukewarm water. The idea is that we're going to get the consistency of waffle batter. So a new world meant new ingredients, and corn actually became a substitute for European wheat flour as European settlers came to North America. It first started as a necessity, and then it became an accepted and enjoyed flavor. So now that we've mixed our mixture all together, we're going to cover the bowl with a towel and we're going to let it rest at room temperature for 15 to 20 minutes. We're back and we're ready to fry up our hoe cake. What you're going to do is take a griddle or a pan and you're going to put it on the top of the stove, heat it to medium high heat, and you're going to grease it up with vegetable shortening or lard. I'm going to use butter. So we're going to get that going right now. A lot of people wonder where the name hoe cake comes from, and it's actually from the pan used to cook the cake. So, hoe referred to a type of pan that is pretty much comparable to a griddle, and that's where we get the name today. Once your griddle is nice and hot, you're going to take about 1/4 cup of the batter and pour it in, and that's going to be your hoe cake. We're going to cook it for about 5 minutes on one side before we flip it, and then we'll cook it 5 minutes on the other side until it's a light golden brown. So we're going to go ahead and start our hoe cakes. When your pan is nice and hot, go ahead and put the batter in the middle. It's kind of like a pancake. Corn quickly became a staple of the American diet, but this wasn't the case in England or in the rest of Europe, where corn was pretty much used for animal fodder. And that became a point of contention between the American colonists and England in particular. A lot of folks in Europe would make fun of Americans for eating corn. They associated it with its Native American origins and didn't really consider it to be a civilized ingredient. And so this really contributed to the tensions that helped escalate and eventually coalesce into the American Revolution. Benjamin Franklin actually came to the defense of corn, calling it one of the most agreeable and wholesome grains in the world in 1766, and other notable Americans mention corn and corn dishes like hoe cakes in their works. For instance, Washington Irving mentions the dish in some of his pieces. So corn became a common ingredient that colonists all used. It became a commonality that Americans shared, part of the emerging American identity at this point, and it came to define a very American way of life. So corn became a great unifier during the late 18th century. After the Revolutionary War, corn actually became the food of the new nation. And regardless of class or gender, race, or region, everybody enjoyed corn dishes, including hoe cakes. And we still continue to enjoy them today. After 4 to 5 minutes, you're going to flip your hoe cake and cook it for the same amount on the other side. So when you finish a hoe cake, you're going to want to put it in the oven in order to keep it warm. And for each batch of hoe cakes that you make, you're going to want to drizzle some melted butter on top. So we're ready to go. We're going to have some hoe cakes for breakfast. George Washington famously liked his hoe cakes with honey and melted butter. He absolutely loved the hoe cake smothered in that, which gave it a sweet taste. But today you can also use maple syrup. It's very corny. A lot of corn. That's good. And there you have it. Hoecakes smothered in honey and butter. One of the favorite dishes of our founding fathers and one of our favorite dishes today. I hope that you enjoyed this week's Home Cooked History, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, guys.